It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity.
Hello, model citizens. Welcome to Humanity Junction. I was caught a little off kilter there. I was looking up Adam's new eBay store because I gotta focus. I gotta pay attention. So what's going on tonight? We're gonna talk a little bit about Island Ops, about the aftermath of Island Ops. A little bit about what happened, about what I've already changed on the layout, what I'm gonna change on the layout, all that good stuff. But yeah, so Adam was mentioning his eBay store and his Etsy store. Just wanted to give him a little shout out as a longtime supporter of the channel. He has a laser cutter and he's been doing some laser cutting stuff for the hobby. And I'm a big fan of these NMRA style weight rulers where you just put the car on the ruler and it tells you what the weight of it should be. Adam's made a really good version of it, or at least I think it's a really good version of it in HO and N scale. So check it out. I'll drop the link in the chat just because. Yeah, so check that out. I think he's up to some interesting things. And yeah, I guess, I don't know if John 2618 is talking about this is the after party or what he's referring to as the after party, but I'll tell you, I'm still recovering from the weekend. It was quite the event to get there, and it went well. It went well. I think things went well. I think it was positive. We'll get into some of the details of that. Before we get into that really quickly, here's an item I had put on pre-order over at Microtrains, and I just got it in. Anytime I see anything that says New York Central on it, I kind of jump at it. I don't need any more cars on my layout, and yet I seem to still be ordering more cars. New York Central and Hudson River 4-car runner pack. Built in 1913, so pre my era, but I run a bunch of this stuff. I have the New York Central MDT cars. I'm looking to see if I can find one quickly, which is kind of the next generation of this car, and I can't find one quickly, but you know, I've got a bunch of these old reefers on the layout. They're easy to identify. They're fun to identify. So that's the story. That's what was going on with that. Let's kind of jump, I guess, right into the island op stuff. We'll see how long it takes me to go through stuff. There may be question time at the end. We'll see. Anyway, let's jump into it. As I mentioned last week, Island Ops was pretty stressful for me. It was my first time hosting at that level. Not that I haven't had some very experienced people over here, but it was the first time I was having them in such numbers, as well as just representing an event such as Island Ops. Island Ops is an ops weekend that's put on once a year, and it's gotten a little bit of a reputation for having some, good layouts. So people come from all over. We had, a guy come from Florida, a guy come down from New Hampshire. Like, people are coming from all around to visit, so I was a little nervous, but had to just kind of push through and make things happen. So before Island Ops, and this kind of came out of, I guess, last week's conversation, is I've really been trying to figure out how to distill the information down as precise as possible, but still provide enough information for the operators. And what I ended up doing is I came up with this document right here. It's now a 1-page primer instead of a 30-page primer. If anybody wants to see it, I guess I should probably just type the, let's see if I can do this. It's prepare.rtsl for Riverside Transfer Shortline .nyc. And that's the RTSL primer. So this is the new version of it. It got way cut down. And I think it gives the essential information. I wasn't sure how well it was going to work, so I still printed up, and I still had some of the other information available in case it was needed. But I think it worked out pretty well. I was going to go with font size 1, but I think I ended up with 10 or maybe even 11. But again, as you can see, I included pictures, right? And I think a little bit of it, pictures kind of help, but just a short little overview of the layout, and this little overview of the layout kind of helps explain why there are 2 yards in the layout and how the 2 yards interact with each other. I then provided a little zone map so people can kind of get a sense of the actual kind of layout of the tracks, and then just provided a priority list. And if you follow the priority list, things are going to work out, and if you don't, things will probably still work out. And then talked a little bit about train length. Train length is very important on the layout because the entire layout is basically designed around 8 cars. All of the passing sidings, except for one I just found out, will fit 8 cars, and it just makes everything flow well. One of the other great things that happened over the weekend, and I'm going to talk more about Island Ops, but there was one person that came up from Florida, and they did not come empty-handed. They came with a little project that they had been working on for me, And what that was, well, they've done other projects, right? So we've seen this locomotive before. This is the 1973 locomotive. It's a GP30 made by Atlas, the ESU decoder. The reason it's 1973 is that was the year I was born, and I had been talking to this artist about painting up 2 other locomotives. And yeah, so just so we're all clear, Don didn't come from Florida for Island Ops. Don just drove around the corner to get here. But John Farrington came all the way from Florida. So this is a locomotive that John had already given me, but John actually did up these 2 locomotives. You can, I mean, look at that number board. I think depending on the size of the screen you're looking at it at right now, he's got the numbers on the number boards. Just really, really nice work. 1996 is the year my mom passed away. 2014 is the year that I met Melinda, my girlfriend, my long-term partner. So now I have 1973, my birth year, 1996 and 2014. I'm gonna run the 2014 and the 1996 together. So I need to get them on the layout. I didn't have time to do the programming, so they aren't on the layout yet, but this is one of the items that I need to get set up on the layout. I think one of the things I mentioned before Island Ops was that I was actually going to be doing 2 sessions. I was doing one session that was officially a part of Island Ops, and then I did a yeah, Don writes his birth year in Roman numerals because those are the characters that they were using when Don was born. I'm assuming that's what you were implying, and I was just saying it out loud to continue. Well, Don was a really great sport. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it a little bit more when we get there. But Don was a really great sport while he was here. So I did one. What was I saying? So I did an official one. I had 3 people come to the official one because officially my layout is set up for 3 operators. But because there were people like Don and Mark Herrick and John Farrington and Ed O'Connell and other people coming from from far away, they don't get down here very often, I wanted to host a second session so that I could have some additional people experience the layout. But even more so, my goal was to get feedback. I've talked about this before. I think I've said I've talked about it. Anytime I say I've talked about this before, that's going to be tonight's drinking game. So feel free to take a drink. So Dennis did come down as well, but I didn't mention you, Dennis, because you've been to the layout. So you were the experienced operator of the group. But I wanted to have this rogue session to really get some feedback, and I knew that Don Iris would be somebody that would give me some really good feedback. Ed O'Connell has something called the Ops Squad, where they're providing feedback for people's layouts for operations. So I really wanted to get some of these people to the layout that would help me take the layout to the next level. So I do have a couple of photos, and we'll just go through them kind of quickly, but I guess the last one's kind of the interesting one. But that's Mark Herrick over there in the corner staring at the car float with John Farrington to his left. John is the one that has been doing the painting of the Riverside Transfer locomotives for me. You can see I've got a lot of information up on the valence. Some useful, it didn't seem like they were, or at least I didn't notice people using them a lot. I think people mostly used the car cards, which was kind of the intention. That's kind of the idea, is that that's what the car cards are there for. But there is a bunch of other information around the layout. I did also get some positive feedback about the tablets. I got a little bit more information about the tablets a little bit later. Here's Mark Herrick again on the left, and that's Don Iris up there running the north yard. So I was talking about how Don was a good sport. Don was just cruising along on the north yard. At this point, Ed and Dennis hadn't gotten there. So at this point, it was Don, Mark, and John, and myself. So there were 4 of us in the room, and John and Mark were kind of both down at that south end. Don was up in the north end by himself. And Don was just cruising along, and one of the things that I have set up on this layout is if things are going a little bit too well, that's when I bring in the road trains. So when Ed and Dennis showed up, the first thing I did was gave Ed a throttle, and I said, "Hey Ed, grab this road train and bring it into the yard for Don to deal with, because he's cruising along too well. He's getting ahead of people, and we need to slow him down." And I think for what they are, I think it actually worked pretty well. I haven't been running the road trains during sessions. The road trains have been something that we just don't get to. And I think that's okay. Like, it gives me something to run at the end of a session. But what I'm also kind of learning is that I can use the interchanges to adjust the speed of the operations to help kind of balance things out. Like, if the north yard's getting a little ahead of the south yard, I can slow the north yard down by bringing a train in. If the south yard's getting ahead of the north, I can slow them down a little bit. So the ops plan normally is that I would run the road trains. So I would be the disruptor, as I like to refer to that position. But we ended up with more than enough people to run the layout. So yeah, those interchange trains were a wrench into my yard work, just as he had planned. So exactly. We did. So here's Ed on the left, Ed O'Connell, Mark Herrick on the right. They were running trains that were crossing each other at Manhattanville. Manhattanville is an area that definitely is a what do we want to call it? It's where all the cornfield meets happen, right? Everything that needs to go north-south basically passes that area, and there's always some coordination that needs to go on to get the trains through. There you go. It's the bottleneck on the layout. It is and it isn't. Like, it is intentionally a bottleneck, but the way it is set up, you generally don't need to wait very long to get through it. You just have to plan it out. And as Don is pointing out, yes, this was part of the way into the night scene. So I did, during Island Ops, both the regular session and the Rogue session, we did a little bit of night ops. We didn't really talk about it afterwards. It was night for maybe 15 minutes at most. It was still, I think, bright enough that most of the people didn't even break their lights out to operate. They kind of had everything set up, and I guess that's part of the ops plan as well, is the first hour and a half I kind of just let people be and don't really change anything with the lighting. But after about an hour and a half, I feel like people already have kind of they're starting to understand the layout. And once they start to understand the layout, I feel comfortable starting to take the lights down. Steve, you know, ironically, so the Island Op session was in the morning and the Rogue session was in the afternoon, not on the same day, Saturday morning and then Sunday afternoon. The Saturday morning crew didn't really take any snacks, but the Sunday afternoon crew did. So I don't know if that's, I don't know if that's saying that my snacks weren't good enough or not. I did get a complaint about the snacks. I sent an email asking for some feedback, and one of the people that was at the session said that my drinks were not cold, and that next time I need to make sure that the drinks are cold. So we're working on that. I'm getting myself a cooler, and what I will do is pre-chill the drinks, and then I will bring the drinks down and keep them cold with a little bit of ice. But yeah, we had peanut butter cookies, we had animal crackers, we had some Kind bars. I had some coconut water. I knew Andy would like the coconut water, so I got it even though he wasn't coming to the layout for the Island Ops. But anyway, so, you know, I had some, yes, Andy, we know you only used crushed ice, but yeah, I thought it was a decent variety, and I'm learning what people are interested in, but I thought I had a decent variety of stuff. The food is kind of outside, so you have to like leave the layout room to get to the food. So I don't, like, as Don said, the food wasn't like in your face. You actually had to kind of leave the space a little bit to get the food, and I was intentionally keeping the operators busy. I think I succeeded. I think some of the feedback that I got, that it was a good amount of work, but not an overly, it wasn't too much work, but it was like just a good amount of work that like kept things moving forward. So let's go back to some of the photos just to see them. So here's some more of the night mode. Here's John Farrington looking through some car cards. You can see the tablets. One thing I need to check on is the tablets. I have them set. Some of them are set for automatic dimming, so they would get brighter when it got darker out. Or no, sorry. Some of them stayed bright when it got darker out, and some of them dimmed when it got darker out. So I got to fix that, but I don't think anybody but me noticed that, so that was probably okay. Here's Don using the proto throttle. I think Ed was probably bringing a train in, so they're trying to coordinate getting things in. Here's the last photo I want to show. I never thought that this would be possible. When everybody showed up, everybody's comment was, wow, it looks much bigger on the live streams. So people were kind of shocked at how small the space was. So I was starting to get a little bit nervous, because if you count the number of people in the room, you'll see there are 5 people in that picture, plus the guy taking the picture, which was me. There were 6 of us in the room, 4 of them pretty much running trains nonstop. Dennis, we had him pick up a train every once in a while, but I was kind of amazed at how many people were able to fit in the room and still operate. I did have the air conditioning cranking, so you know, I tried to keep it cool, tried to keep it comfortable. You know, it was May 4th was when the Rogue session was, so, you know, for those people that only take showers once a month, we were only, you know, 4 days into the month, so we didn't have that issue as well. But yeah, I mean, there was definitely a reduction of social space, but it wasn't bad. I mean, there were a couple moments where like I'd move from one end of the room to the other just to kind of ease some of the congestion a little bit. But I don't think I'll ever do 6 people in the room again, but it does make me think I might be able to do 4. Like if there were 4 in there plus me, I think that might work. So I don't think I'm not going to 4 operators plus me just quite yet. I'm going to stick with 3 for a little bit longer yet. But I do think it's kind of interesting to stress. It was a stress test. It really was a stress test of the layout, both testing the room, how many people could fit in the room, but also just testing the number of locomotives on the layout. There was one scenario where every time I would bring the R.J. Corman and the Port Harbor locomotives out, that they would short out. And I don't know why they kept shorting out. And that's something that was hard to, it's something hard for me to troubleshoot by myself. I kind of need 4 people to help me run enough trains to really push the layout. So I got to figure out a way to test why adding that road train in at that time was causing issues. I might need to go to a single 6-axle locomotive for my road trains instead of 2 4-axle locomotives. But again, like I've got an amp meter. I was looking at the amp meter, and it I don't know. I got to look into it. Something was going on, but I just, I don't know. So that is definitely one thing that I need to figure out. There were a lot of conversations about the magnets. I've always been very mixed about the magnets. They were suggested to me by an experienced operator. I thought I'd give them a try. I thought that they make sense. It makes sense to put the magnets, on the yards and put the magnets in places that are hard to reach. So what I did, I don't know if you can kind of see in this photo, but I router out the rails until the rails or the ties are just really, really thin. And then I glue the magnets in. And I was really kind of concerned that, okay, now that I had all the magnets in, I really didn't want to rip the magnets out because I thought it would look terrible. But we talked about it a lot, and eventually kind of, I just decided that I think it's better without the magnets. I think that they're a great idea. They work. I like to say they work about 50% of the time when you want them to, and about 50% of the time when you don't want them to. And if an N-scale car isn't perfectly weighted, it does a little bit of this like bouncing things. So sometimes they would come undone when you don't want them to. And honestly, the cars uncouple really well with just a regular old, uncoupling stick. So I decided to just rip the magnets out. So as you can see, the magnets are off the layout. Well, that's not true. I've got 2 magnets that I left, which are kind of in the, by the powerhouse, but that's kind of in the back. And yes, they have cars that run over them, but not nearly as many cars as in the yards. So all the magnets have been pulled out of the yards anywhere that there's heavy switching. Most people weren't really happy with the magnets, so it worked out. And if I didn't tell you that this is where the magnet came out of, right? Like if if you didn't know that there was a gap between where these green magnets are, there's a big cutout on those tracks. Once I repaint this and once I ballast it, you're not gonna notice that area is different. So I was really worried about removing the magnets and have it just completely make the track look absolutely terrible. But yeah, and this was some good feedback that I got as well, right? So I think there was one person that came the weekend that had experienced N-scale operations prior to coming to my layout, but I was concerned that coupling and uncoupling was going to be like something that all these like HO scale operators just absolutely hated. So I was a little concerned about that, but in my experience, it's no more difficult, and it's like so close that sometimes I would say N scale's even easier than HO scale in certain circumstances. But yeah, so I got decent feedback that it was that the uncoupling went well, so I felt comfortable taking the magnets out. The biggest problem that we had on the layout, in my opinion, and this was, we talked about this and we kind of acknowledged that it's just sort of a part of model railroading, but it's something that I really wanted to try and fix. And I've been thinking for a long time about how to fix it, but I've been very hesitant to implement it because I was concerned that my skills in programming weren't going to match the level of programming required to do this. So I was very, very hesitant to try this. But after the rogue session at Island Ops, I decided that it was something that I really, really needed to look into. So here's a typical tablet panel, touch panel. And when you change a turnout, essentially what you're doing is you're clicking on one of these buttons. And they are animated, so you can see which of the arm is the, you know, the open side. And of course, I'm picking some that aren't, you're not able to see them really well, but you can kind of see them here. Now, the problem that comes with the layout is that if you accidentally enter a switch that is thrown the wrong way, sometimes it'll just short out the area you're working in, but sometimes it'll shut off the whole layout because you're basically causing a dead short. All of my frogs are powered, so if the turnout is thrown in the wrong direction, when you hit that powered frog, it's a dead short and there's nothing you can do. That the layout's shutting down. It's just the way it is. And because of the way I set up the panel, you can't see it there, but let's see. So the RT logo here at the bottom, that means that the layout power is off. So I can click these and you can see they're changing, right? Like these are all changing to green as I click them, but the track power is off. So they're not actually changing. And the problem would be is you'd trip the layout power would go off. You'd go and you'd switch the turnout to the correct direction it was supposed to be, and then you'd turn the power back on to the layout. But when the layout power's off, the turnouts don't throw, right? So that was the issue we were running into. So what I decided to do, and what I've been thinking about doing for a long time, is I have feedback set up to all my turnouts. All of the turnouts that I use on this layout have a single pole double throw switch that I have feeding back through LocoNet into my controller. So the controller knows what position the turnout is in. I just was having problems programming it in, and things weren't quite working right. And what Chris says is separate the turnout from track power on their own booster. The reason I can't do that is because the frogs are powered and have to be powered off of track power. So if the turnout's in the wrong position and the frogs are powered, you're going to get a dead short, whether it's powered off of separate power or whether it's powered off of track power. What Chris is suggesting absolutely works if you're not powering your frogs. That is the absolute way that you should do it, is you should have it separated. So John's saying I should set up a huge red flag. Ed is saying that I should add a siren. Here's my solution. Here's what I did. Here's what I spent time doing. So this is what the new panel looks like. And let me just zoom in a little bit. So now, instead of just a solid green or yellow dot, what you have now is a ring with basically a light in the center of it. So the ring will change when you click on the ring. But if you notice, the green in the center is not changing. And the reason it's not changing is because the power is not on. So what does that green in the center indicate? That green in the center indicates the actual position of the turnout. So if you want the turnout to be diverging, which is what the yellow on this outside shows, but the green in the center does not match the color on the outside, then that turnout is not diverging. So the new rule on the layout is that if the colors do not match, then something is wrong. So like this one here matches, right? It's a green circle, a green inside. This one doesn't match, so this one's got a problem. When I turn track power on, and you can tell track power is on because detection just came up and I've actually got a locomotive in that section. If I now click this to green, right, and the center is green, when I click it now to yellow, once that turnout turns to yellow, now the feedback telling me that the turnout has actually moved also turns to yellow. And you might be saying, well, this is kind of like does this make sense? Is this logical? Well, if you've ever used a CTC panel, the way a CTC panel works, and I'm going to totally screw this up because I am not a CTC guy, but my understanding of a CTC panel is you click on the turnout, you press the button which sends the signal out to the turnout to switch, and then the signal comes back indicating whether the turnout has switched or not. So essentially what I've kind of set up is that CTC style of system where you're triggering, you're giving so when I click this outer circle, I'm giving the command for the turnout to turn out. And then when I get the green light back, then it verifies to me that the turnout is thrown. So yes, in a perfect world, it would be great if I could have 2 command stations, if I could figure out a way to set it up where all of the frogs are powered and it's still, I wouldn't get the shorts. but I think it's kind of the nature of the model railroading thing, and I think this is kind of the this is the solution, I think, that is going to work well for my layout. So I just turn the layout off, so you can see I send the signal for that turnout to diverge, and that turnout is not providing me feedback that it has turned, so obviously it's not going to go. So I think this is a very usable solution to one of the problems that at least I find frustrating on the layout. I hope it solves future problems. We'll see. The other thing that this allows me to do is, if you look at the size of this button versus now the size of this button, so the entire circle, or like you can see as I highlight it, this entire square is now the touchable area. So it's a much bigger touchable area. Then here you can see the square is much smaller. So Andy's asking, so a CTC panel is when we went to Filmonauts layout, that what he has at his layout is a CTC panel. A CTC panel is what the dispatcher uses to both monitor where the trains are, as well as throw the turnouts and set the signals. CTC stands for, who wants to throw it out there? I don't remember, but CTCs don't have anything to do with the locomotives. There's no, the only locomotive feedback on a CTC panel is detection, but my understanding is that's not actually the locomotive's not sending a signal back. It's getting a signal off the rails. There you go. Centralized traffic control. So it's all about train traffic. It's not about locomotive control. So I think this is a good solution. We're gonna find out. I mean, we'll keep working the system. I am convinced that I can make this a well running railroad, and as positive as the feedback was that I got over the weekend, I'm always frustrated anytime the layout shorts out, and I think this is going to be something that really helps the operators know the positions of the turnouts. There is a next step. Speaking about changes and future things that I want to do, one of the next steps with this is that I want to program in that if there is a locomotive over a turnout, you won't be able to throw that turnout, and that is just logic within JMRI. Again, that's getting into that area of me as a programmer. I don't know how to do that, so I'll need to do some research and figure that out. But that'll also help prevent shorts and help prevent people from throwing switches underneath. So yes, Andy, in my case, the engineers are throwing the turnouts. So the logic that I have implemented is CTC-like, but until I have a dispatcher, it's not actually CTC. It's just the methodology. I have not tried adjusting the breakers yet. I want to do some more testing with the locomotives and see if I can figure out if there's something going on with the locomotive drawing too much amperage, or what's going on. So this is actually a great segue, Ray. Thanks for setting me up. Ray's asking, are you going to set up for remote dispatching so that Don can throw turnouts under your trains? The answer is yes. We talked a little bit about this. This is the Zello website. I tested this a couple years ago, and it didn't quite work the way I wanted it to. I think it could have been operator error. It could have been just like how I was setting things up. I did just purchase a headset. This is a Bluetooth headset. And the idea being is I've got all these tablets around the room, and I am going to put Zello onto the tablets. And then this headset has a mute button on the headset. So you mute the headset by pushing this button here on the bottom of the headset. So my thought is instead of muting on the tablet, you'll be able to mute on the headset, and then you'll be able to communicate with the dispatcher. Sorry, this is the one I wanted to click on. Just use FRS radios. I'm set up to use FRS radios. The problem is, what I want to do, I'm less interested in remote dispatching. I'm much, much more interested in having the conductor be in the room and the engineer being remote. So if I have 3 conductors in the room and 3 engineers remoted, I need each of the conductors to be able to talk to their engineers at the same time without crosstalk, right? Because the north engineer or the north conductor might be telling the north engineer what to do. The south conductor might be telling the south engineer what to do at the same time. I could set up multiple FRS radios. At that point, things just start getting complicated. So I think that this might be a solution where we use Zello. We use Zello with multiple channels, and the remote operators dial in, and I'll have the headsets here, and people can either use the headsets or they can download the app and log in via their phones. If people would prefer to use their own setup, they can absolutely do that. But I think as a layout host, it's important to provide these communication tools and not require your operators to bring them. So like I have enough throttles for people to operate the layout. You know, I have enough FRF radios. So I think I'd want to get just a couple more of these headsets and set this up. Yeah, so Zello is basically like Nextel, except it works over Wi-Fi, not over cell signal. Don did have a tough time with Zello, which is why I'm a little concerned about it. There are paid solutions that would work really, really well, but the paid solutions are very, very expensive, and you know, we're on a budget here, so I'm not not going to spend thousands of dollars a year to implement this system. And yeah, like, could I have people just use their cell phones? Yes. Does everybody have unlimited cell stuff these days? Yes, everybody does. Theoretically, you can use cell phones, but there's one other thing. There's one other step, right? So there's remote dispatching and remote operators. So what I'm talking about right now is remote operations. And each operator needs to be able to talk to and only hear, their conductor, right? It's got to be like a one-way thing, or like a bidirectional thing. But to add in the dispatcher, I now need to have another channel that everybody can tune into that is the dispatcher channel. So the conductor and the engineer are talking, and now they need to go out onto the main line. So now they need to call the dispatcher ask for permission to go out on the main line. So the reason why I'm not just using FRS radios and all this kind of stuff is, yeah, you know, Don's saying, you know, I would need 3 laptops for each of the operators. I would need, you know, it just gets into a lot of stuff, and I know what I'm about to say is going to probably come across, I'm trying to make things simple. And again, simple for the operators, simple for the people that are going to come and operate the layout, not necessarily simple for me. I am going to take on the work to then have it be a seamless experience for the operators. And yes, as people are joking around, you know, Don had trouble with Zello. Don told me that he had trouble with Zello because at the time he only had Wi-Fi in his house. He didn't have Wi-Fi out in his shed. So I'm hoping maybe I'll have a little bit more luck. Discord might work as well. I might be able to set up multiple instances of Discord and run it through Discord. Discord has some intricacies with Bluetooth headsets, though. For some reason, Discord doesn't work really well with them. I don't really understand all the reasons. But Discord's an option as well. And what I like about Discord is that people could then log in and people could log in and they could listen to an op session, listen and watch. Yes, I could get a bunch of hard phone lines. That is true. And Don says, yes, so prototypically, there was one frequency for the road crew. But I also have to wonder, prototypically, how many pairs of conductor engineers did you have switching at the same time, right? So the yard had their own frequency and the road guys had their own frequency. And like, I don't know, like, was there a lot of crosstalk with the yard guys? Was there a lot of crosstalk with the yard guys? One of the things that changes with model railroading and with scale is that things start happening on top of each other, more than the prototype does. We're not one-to-one on a fast clock. Time is completely stretched and messed up. And I am a freelance modeler who steals ideas from the prototype, and I am implementing prototypical ideas into my completely freelance layout. Yeah, and so I've got a bunch of cheap walkie-talkies, but again, it would be that I would need to have multiple computers to bring them all in. Yard frequencies and road frequencies, yeah, so there were multiple frequencies. You should listen to the Waycross Road yard frequency. Oh, I guess I can do that through YouTube, right? Are there a bunch of conductors and engineers talking over each other? I'm very curious about that. But yeah, Bell Atlantic. Yeah, I'll bring Bell Atlantic in to do it. So I already mentioned some of the changes I'm looking to implement. Still working on upgrading the tablets, just like keep pushing them to the next level. I'm looking at ways to add in the communication to external operators and potentially an external dispatcher at some point. I need to talk. I'm actually, one thing I did not talk to Don and Mark about, who both do remote dispatching, is I'm curious as to their thoughts as to whether it would even make sense to have a dispatcher. My layout really is kind of a, it's a short line. It's people just work together to get the work done. Would a dispatcher be useful, or would a dispatcher just be completely bored out of their mind? At this point, I don't think we're gonna have 3.0. I think at this point, 2.0 is gonna continue to grow. I do want to do more videos on version 2.0, just to show you real quick. So this is my, my cell phone setup, which I'm trying to get the lens as close to the ground as possible. I did shoot a 360 video. I've got this 360 camera. I've got a flat bottom on it that I've been now kind of using, that where I can just sort of like sit it on the layout and move it around pretty easily. But the lens is a lot higher than the cell phone. The cell phone's much closer to the top of the locomotives. So this makes it a little weird because it's up a little high, but I think the 360 camera is a better way to film operations. It gives people more of a feeling that they are in the room. And so I want to keep going with those. I'm going to keep experimenting with those to kind of see how it goes. Don said, all in all, Heath, you did a great job. I really enjoyed operating on your layout. I really appreciate that. I'm going to have to screenshot that and save that as well. Heath talked to Murphy, does that at SVL. Are you talking about the dispatching? I'm not sure what you're talking about. Don said there's always room for a dispatcher. Ray says, gotta have someone in control, which is true. Ray says, we did it on my layout. I'm assuming he means remote dispatching on his layout. And yeah, I think Bob's got it right. Next version is going to be a 2.01 or a version 2.1, which is just going to be, a continuing of the process. One thing I didn't mention yet during this stream, we did have the proto throttles going. Don used a proto throttle in the north yard. Dennis, when he took over, was using the proto throttle as well. The operators during the island op session were using the proto throttles, and I think people had a good experience with it. I've got it on the stand. I think for the most part, people liked the stand and liked the repositioning of the stand. And I like the proto throttle. I think it's neat with the momentum and the braking and stuff. And I attempted to slow Don down with it. It didn't work very well, but I like the TCS throttle. I do. I like this throttle. I like yard mode with this throttle, but I think the proto throttles I'm really having a really good time with. Don says all your locomotives ran so smoothly, unbelievable for N scale. I'm shocked as well. I gotta admit, I have been so happy with the way version 2.0 that I think for people that are wondering whether N scale is an option for an operating layout, I think that I'm proving it here. I think that there's the clinch field in N scale out in Minneapolis. I think there are layouts out there proving that N scale can really be a great solution for operations as well. Bob, yes, the stands were in the room when the 5 operators were here. The stands kind of, they go with you, right? So they're kind of right there next to you. The base of them is really small, and I've got a little weight on it, so it doesn't fall over, and it doesn't really get in the way at all. Paul says, I think you're onto something with the stand too. Iowa Scale should just have released the mount themselves. I would love it if there was a 1/4-20 mount on the back of it. If you don't think N-scale layouts work, look at Doug Diedrich's layout in the Albany area. Maybe I'll get up there and operate his as well. How did I attach the controller to the stand? Mine is a modified back. It's a narrower back, and I put an Arca Swiss tripod mount. I just glued it to the back. One nice thing is if you do like to hold it, it gives you a real nice edge to hold it on, so you get a real nice secure grip on it. But this just basically just clamps to the top of the stand, and you know, it'll clamp to any Arca Swiss clamp, so it makes it pretty easy. Rusty, I'll be curious to hear how that goes. I think you've probably been there before as well. Is there a belief that N-scale layouts aren't suited for operations? I think there are. I think that people, if people have the chance to go to an HO scale layout or an N scale layout, I think that people, in my experience, they'll lean towards the HO scale layout. So, yeah. Don even says if he did his new layout in N scale, he could have had the same layout he had up in Rhode Island, which I think is interesting. Yes, you can absolutely do this on a microphone stand. I have adapters for mic stands that would allow you to put an Arca Swiss clamp on the top of it. So, and mic stands would be great too, because mic stands already have a weighted round base that that won't get in the way. So yeah, G scale is fun as well. One of the layouts in this area as well. Don says that's untrue. Okay. I hope that's not untrue. I don't know that there's a belief. It's just N-scale ops isn't accessible a lot of places. And I think I'm still in the process of figuring it out, but I think like with kind of the design that I've been working on with the car cards, having like the pictures on top and stuff, I think that there are some things that I'm implementing that really kind of work well for N-scale, or at least I hope they work well for N-scale. And I'm having fun. I mean, I'm getting stressed out. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a different thing. Oh yeah, N-scale is totally good for ops. Agreed. And this is true, right? There's literally not an N-scale operating layout in the Rochester area, and that's true. A lot of the big operating layouts out there are layouts that people started in the 80s and early 90s. And if you were building a layout in the early 80s and early 90s, you are not going to build it in N-scale, because back then, N-scale was rough. Like, it was rough. I know, I've still got some of my old 80s N-scale stuff. So I think N-scale's come a long way, and I think we're, yeah, Andy, what's the N-scale layout near you? You just have to watch out for snakes in the driveway. I guess you're talking about Dean Ferris's layout. Yeah, exactly, Dennis. I do think that it is a very kind of a new thing. So I'm excited. I'm having fun. If you're ever in this area, please reach out. We'll get an ops session set up if that's the kind of thing you're into. If you're not into ops, just like, you know, let's schedule a visit and come hang out and see how things work around here. I'm going to keep growing, hopefully. I am hopefully going to keep improving. That's ultimately my goal, is to learn from every experience. And I hope if Don, Mark, Ed, and Dennis and everybody come back to John Farrington, Andy, even you, when you come back to the next layout, I hope that some of these changes that I've made make it an even better experience. From the city that never sleeps, farewell, model citizens.
It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity.